This is another area that I have to really glean out because it's an area that I'm not super familiar with. I'm pretty much well versed in the Jewish religion for the most part, only because I went to Sunday school and went to services like every Friday night as a child and did practice some of the traditions like lighting the candles and high holidays, Passover, and all of that. But no, I really don't practice anything at this point. But I'm very familiar with the Jewish religion and some of the belief systems behind it. And so when I'm looking at when I've when I'm trying to figure out the people that are in charge, which we know is the two factions, the Vaticans and the Freemasons. The Vatican and the Freemasons. Now, the Vatican, I was studying the first Christians last night on Frontline and just looking at what is going on today and how is that kind of emulating from way back when. And there's definitely we are definitely repeating history in a lot of ways. But I still have to know the difference between why is it that Christians and Catholics don't really get along. There are significant differences between the two, of which then I see the Catholics give more credence to human choices, and the Christians are more about you really can't save yourself. A higher power can only save you. And I'm just like, okay, I sort of disagree with that, which I can kind of see now why the Freemasons and the Catholics have joined together because it is about order and free choice or freedom of choice. Um, that it isn't left up to some higher power to determine your fate. And that's where I'm coming from as far as Jilly Juice, that you have the power to change the course of your direction. It's not left, if you change the way you believe certain things, you can change what you put in your body, you can change how you characterize specific physical manifestations, and then you'll have a different outcome. Some religions out there, well, maybe Christianity is saying that no, from what I've gathered. Now, where am I getting my information from? Well, I went to this website. It's called diffin.com, Difference Catholic versus Christianity. And I was going through, I'm going to copy this because it does speak to a lot of what's going on even right now in our current politics with Biden versus Trump. Okay. Now, Trump was a representation of a type of Christianity and kind of like a savior, which kind of sees why we have a bit of a following with Trump, because there are these savior characteristics that people glom onto. And now he's, back in, or he's going back to Florida and gonna let Biden do whatever. So, but I saw this one, in this comparison between Catholicism and Christianity, and Catholics, God's role in salvation. Catholics believe that God sent his only divine son to save humanity from their sins. And then Christianity believes that humans cannot save themselves or ascend on their own to a higher level. That's where I have an issue with. Only God is good, and therefore only God is able to save a person. Jesus came down from heaven to save mankind. Which, okay, fine. There are people out there that are representation of possibility, and then obviously you as a person are going to make a choice. Are you going to listen to what they're saying at the time? Now, Jesus was a guy back in the day, and people were following him because he may have spoken something different than the authority, the Roman authority. And then what happened was is that from what I've seen, this is very simplified, but from what I've seen, that the Temple of the Mount with all the priests are living under Roman rule, and they're trying to live a relatively drama-free lifestyle, and it's all political, and so they gave Jesus as a sacrifice to allow then peace, as far as the Temple of the Mount. Because, when you have a rabble-rouser, someone that is speaking against the current administration, and they don't allow that, yeah, they're going to find somebody. They're going to say that that person is a rabble-rouser, he's trouble. So anyways, I'm the reason why I'm bringing religion into this is because it does have a lot to do with uh, the jelly juice and the potential for indefinite life. And people get lost in the words and all of that, and all the different characterizations of what afterlife is and what current life is. And that's all distraction, in my opinion. Why are we here on this earth? Well, everyone's going to determine their purpose, and is it so superficial to say that your purpose on this earth is to play the violin so beautifully, or to race the fastest car one day, or is your purpose to write a book and say everyone can live forever? I mean, purposes change all the time. It evolves with the current conditions. As you're seeing, from 4 years of Trump to now potentially 48 years, because look at 2028, if Biden gets reelected, let's say everything goes so smoothly under Biden, yes, you're going to have vaccinations, you're going to have a lot of different uh, changes in the finance side of the world, in our economics. But let's say Biden gets reelected, he'll be here going through the whole point of the Georgia Guidestones till 2028. Okay? That's almost 2030. And remember, we have UN Agenda 2030. All right? Codex Alimentarius. And there's definitely going to be an apocalyptic of sorts going on the next 10 years, 8 years. Okay? So this is where you have to realize that you do have control over your future. And that's why I'm bringing in the religion, because I don't want people thinking that they don't have control over their future. You have every control to adapt to this next environment. And I think it's great that some of you are Jehovah's Witness, Christian, Catholic, and I've already had my say about the God gene and why people turn to religion, and you can dispute that all you want. That's fine. But there is a reason why people do look outside of themselves for someone to save them, or someone to explain and help them process why they're here. Maybe there is no reason why you're here. You're just here because you're here. Just like, like a plant. A plant is here because it's able to grow. Okay, so a plant has a purpose. It's not very, diverse in its purpose. I mean, it is and it isn't. It helps with the environment. But who are we to characterize what's more important, a human or a plant? They both need each other. A human needs a plant needs a human, and they work symbiotically off each other. Okay, so there may not be any purpose of why we're here on this earth, but we can convert our purpose to be one of not just, living and dissolving, but living and balancing the environment. And religion is a great thing. It gives people some kind of foundation, it gives people some kind of structure, but then there is free choice. Okay, there is free choice, and then there is public policy. And how do you balance out the two? So when I was going through that video about Jesus Christ and the first Christians, it made sense to me. I go back to that. It made sense to me why, how Christianity came to be. Because I can see how anyone that bucks the system, who is destroyed by the authority, can turn into a martyr. Jesus was Jewish. So that's Freemasons. We know the Jews are the Freemasons. Critical of the business politics. So Jesus was critical of the business politics between the priests and the Temple of the Mount and Roman authority. And that's when, I think, was it Pontius Pilate or somebody at that time who was in charge didn't like the fact that he was critical of how the Temple of the Mount was also doing business and politics with the Roman authority, because yes, Rome was covering a lot of land at the time. So Jesus was Jewish, Freemason. He was critical of the business politics between the priests and the Temple of the Mount and Roman authority versus the Roman emperors and authority equals martyrdom. So I guess that's why he died for the sins of his people at the hands of the Romans and even his own brethren, because yes, potentially even his own people said, okay, we want to keep the peace. We don't want the Roman authority to cause chaos, so we will give Jesus, as a sacrifice, which, okay. And then now we have the Romans and the Freemasons working as an alliance again. So we have the Vatican, who still believes, so they did turn Christian at some point. This is where I'm like, okay, when did Rome turn Christian? Because before Christ, it was like, they had one God. They had thought that, and that's where the emperors, where God spoke through an emperor, and that's where the whole thing with the Pope. And so this is where the Christians have an issue with, does God really speak through a person? Okay. And the Catholics like, well, yes, we have these holy people like the Pope and all the different cardinals who are being dubbed as, okay, you are now the speaker, you are the mouthpiece of God. And the people then believe that, which is okay. I have no problem with that. I don't care. But that's the difference between the two. So they adopted Christianity, but there are definitely subtle differences between Christians and Catholics. So every Catholic is a Christian, but not all Christians are Catholic. And that's what I had to see, because I'm like, okay, at what point, did things turn into something that now they are what they are today? And so, yeah, what did I read? When did the Romans believe in Christianity? 313 AD. In 313 AD, the Emperor Constantine issued the Edict of Milan, which accepted Christianity. 10 years later, it had become the official religion of the Roman Empire. And then they used the popes and the different emperors as the mouthpiece through God. They are being dubbed to be able to speak for God. Okay, and that's why then people have this reverence towards the Pope and anyone that's in papal authority, because they think they are descendants from something. Okay, and that's kind of what's going on. And then Tiberius. So what was the Roman Empire at the time of Jesus? Tiberius. During Tiberius' reign, the Jews who had become more prominent in Rome, and Jewish and Gentile followers of Jesus began proselytizing Roman citizens, increasing long simmering resentments. Okay? And so now we have the Freemasons, the Jews, and the Vatican working in alliance together. And then you have all the different emperors after all that time. So it's good to kind of see what happened back then, at least through the eyes of our current administration, because yes, everything that we're learning, like on the internet and through college and different texts, even the old versions, the Old Testament, New Testament, it's all been written by somebody and their version of it, and that's fine. Everyone has a different perspective and a different offshoot of it, but what it comes down to is a common ground. Do you want to live, or do you want to eventually pass away? Do you believe people should die, or do you believe people should live on and stay on this earth for as long as they can adapt? And that's where the Judaism comes in. It's introducing that very different line of thought that, yes, kind of bucks the system, but the system that we have is very open. Okay, the Freemasons have given us the allowance to be able to speak about things that may not totally necessarily jive with status quo. I mean, if I lived back in the days of Rome and say, yes, you can live forever, yeah, they'll probably have me on a cross. People had me on a freaking cross the last 4 years. It was definitely like, something like that. And I'm not calling myself Jesus, but when you are speaking against a different line of thought in a very massive way, people have a hard time with that. And I am so glad I live in America. That's, yes, run by the Freemasons as well as the Vatican, but we have more Freemasons, more room for choice in America than you do maybe somewhere else. Maybe I could have had this line of thought over in England, and I'm sure they would have accepted it too, because you have Oxford and Cambridge and all that. And so there's definitely a lot of people in university, but university is still, they've hit a wall because they still believe people should die. So now we have to understand the world that we live in, and probably why you think there's a war on Christianity, why people are like, oh my God, Trump is like the next best thing, because he is representation of Jesus, who was bucking the system, who didn't want something, didn't want to have all the imbalanced people. And there were, sects, and there are sects right now of apocalyptic belief systems that yes, there's going to be a reset. And you're absolutely right. We're dealing with a reset. We are dealing with some apocalyptic scenarios as we speak, but that's no different than the J juice. When you have imbalances, when you do J juice, you're going to have apocalyptic scenarios with parts of the body that are not uniform with life. And then the whole thing with the golden age. That's why I said agility juice will bring your body back to the golden age when there was peace and prosperity and relative balance, until people start procreating again and again and again, and then there's cancer, disease, and chronic illness, which then does influence the body, mind, and spirit. So it's a lot. That's why I've been struggling with this, because there's so much to it, and you still have to bring in current events of today and try to interpret what's going on based upon historical evidence as well, and still bring in the human condition and people's biochemical balances and imbalances. It's not easy. And then also what I've experienced as me bringing forth a very new thought process, of which I'm sure Jesus had the same issue back then. Again, I'm not trying to compare myself to Jesus as if I'm some next, no, but there's always somebody in society that can see that there's something that needs to be, we need to evolve. Christ probably was a representation of evolution. And then, look at Einstein and, I don't know, Tesla, Steve Jobs, all the different people out there that are changing, that have changed society. I'm sure they ran up against people that were like, no, it can't be done. So there's a lot of people out there that have said that let's try to do this, and people are like, no, it can't be done, and then they did it. No different than Jesus. Jesus happened to be just the first one that did it. Okay? Back then, there was a whole ruling class, and then Jesus like, hey, dude, maybe it's not the way you think it is. And then he was sacrificed and then became a whole following. Well, I don't want to be a martyr. I don't think anyone out there should be a martyr. I don't want anyone revering any one specific person, place, or thing. Revere yourself. Give yourself the opportunity to be your own future, to be able to drive your own future, not because of somebody else was messing with your hormones and messing with your biochemistry because you don't want to feel pain. And so that's a little bit evolutionary for some people, okay, and I understand that. But there's definitely some parallels to why Jesus became who he was and why he had a following. And you don't want to make a martyr out of anybody. You don't. Because that's what causes imbalances. With the death of anyone that has an idea, that's what causes imbalances. So now we have to come back to center and give everybody the opportunity not to be a martyr, but to be a living, viable human that will create their own purpose or convert their own purpose. Okay? So I'm just trying to understand the world I live in and also the past, and I don't have any experience in all this religion stuff. Okay, I have absolutely no experience in the religion stuff. I was raised Jewish. I only know that part, and then I would belong to a Jesus cult in Hawaii for like a minute, but I really didn't belong. I just was there to observe, and saw the one other side of extreme of people and their religions, and then how imbalanced leaders can interpret religion for their own profit. And then, what we're dealing with today as far as the Freemasons and the Vatican running the world. And I'm okay with that. They have created, Rome, they had order. That's why they were upset about Jesus doing what he was doing, because he was kind of throwing the order off and having people question authority and question all that, which is fine. But why is it someone's questioning the order? Because maybe they see something different. And you can still have order with something different. But you have to be able to back up your claims. And I'm doing that. So I'm still utilizing the system to back up my claims of indefinite life. But definitely I have thrown off the order. Okay? But the order's been thrown off for a long time. You're seeing now a huge uptick in cancer, disease, chronic illness. People are not surviving the COVID, or they're getting an uptick in their issues because of the COVID. And so, yeah, no matter what, you're not going to win if you think that you have no control over your future, because you already have compound predispositions that are going to even be more compounded with the new virus strains in the environment. So the Vatican, the Freemasons are not necessarily evil. There's always a good side and bad side to everyone, because you have people who are dying and reproducing, and they have imbalances, and they're going to filter their thought process through their imbalanced biochemistry, and it's going to manifest in a behavior, in a thought process, in a belief system, in a law, in whatever. And you just have to be like, okay, if the middle ground is people to stay alive, then do what you got to do to support public policy, and then in your home, you know what keeps you alive. Okay, do what you know that keeps you alive based upon science. And obviously, if you think people should live, you will believe in all the life promoting protocols that are out there, which is J juice, and eating food and not dieting and not playing with your hormones on a constant basis, and dealing with your evolution, and just being a peaceful, law-abiding, productive citizen that is not extreme. Okay? And so the Vatican and the Freemasons are evolving. They have to. They're forcing an evolution on all of you. Whether or not you'll evolve or not is the difference. But you are being forced to evolve. Whether it's accepting the new health and human services person, like Rachel Levine, to, dealing with the fact that, yeah, we're going to have everyone kind of be on a universal playing field. Capitalism will still exist, but it's not going to be as extreme as it was. Yes, you might see more of communism, socialism. Okay, you can still survive it. You don't need that much. I don't need that much. There's going to be certain people in our society that are going to be the backbone of society, and they're going to be the ones to keep the infrastructure going so you can still live and have a relatively good life despite the changes in the environment, despite people around you who are resisting the changes. And you just be a good person. Put your cart back to, in the, don't leave your cart in a grocery store thing, in the middle of a parking aisle. Put it into the little cart corral or back to the store. Be a good person. Okay? That's all. It's just be a good person. And try to be balanced. And what does that mean? It means do the J juice. Be a good person, do the J juice, and be open to all different possibilities, and listen to indicators. That's the difference. Understand the indicators. All right, I'm going to go. I just needed to kind of verbalize that, but you can check out that website. So you see the difference between Catholics and Christians, if you're not Catholic or Christian, if you're Jewish. So you understand where people are coming from, and that way you have a broader acceptance of the world that you live in, and then you understand people's perspectives, and so you can still work with that. Doesn't mean you have to believe it, but you understand where they're coming from, and then work with that in some way. Because that's what I'm doing. I deal with so many different people that I have to find a way to find that common ground between all of them. And some, if you believe people should die, then there's no common ground that I have with you, really. I mean, there is for maybe 10, 20, 30 years if we have enough of a common ground. But in the end, you're going to be gone away, and I'm going to be like, dude, that sucks. I've invested so much in you, and you're gone. But I do that with some people here in my world, that I do invest in, but I know they're going to be passing away. What do I say I'm not going to be? Well, I'm doing the J juice. I'm doing the evolution. I'm putting, plan A, plan B, plan C, in case if this happens, that happens. I will survive. I'm not suicidal. Okay. So I know the world that I live in. I accept it. Okay. But anyways, I'm gonna go. But I see some weird. I don't know. Maybe it's my hair. All right, I'm gonna go, but it's getting kind of blurry. So you guys have a good day. I'm gonna get off and figure out how else am I gonna write this stuff. All right, bye.